This is Mac OS Ken.
Market caps and the self-promoting future. A look at who might do what in Apple's future. And shocking news around Apple and F1, not the movie. It is Thursday, the 10th of July, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. For one brief shining moment on Wednesday, a publicly traded company touched the heavenly realm that was a $4 trillion market cap, and it wasn't Apple. In fact, the highest on the list of publicly traded companies by value Apple could possibly be at this point is third. As of midday Wednesday, the Cupertino company had a market cap of $3.1 trillion. That was well behind Microsoft with its market cap of $3.7 trillion. Both Mr. Softy and the Cupertino company were swimming in the wake of chipmaker Nvidia. It had a market cap of $3.97 trillion, though. For one brief shining moment on Wednesday, a piece from 9 to 5 Mac says it touched the heavenly realm that was a $4 trillion market cap. So that's that part of that race over. How did Nvidia do it? By building servers optimized for AI. Now, I hit on an idea yesterday that both blew my mind and hurt my head. Part of me has thought for the last year or so that what we're seeing in AI is the same thing that we saw in years past with blockchain and crypto and Web 2.0, and back it goes all the way back to the suffix .com in the late 1990s. Using any of those terms in their turn was pretty much a license to print money. Your article was going to get clicks once that became a thing, and more to the point, your company was going to attract investors. None of that is what blew my mind. What blew my mind was realizing yesterday that of all the technological marvels that have launched and subsequently destroyed countless fortunes, AI is the first and so far only one that can argue for itself, tell us what we want to hear about it. AI can lie for its own benefit, then offer support for those lies based on stuff that it's making up on the spot. So, best of luck to the rest of us. Now here's the thing I still don't get. Nvidia didn't make its recent money making AI. Nvidia made its recent money by making the hardware that facilitates AI. AI has to get to the general consumer somehow. Through, smartphones, tablets, computers maybe. Kind of like the way ChatGPT gets to people through, iPhone, iPad, the Mac maybe. iPhone didn't invent the web, didn't come with its own internet. What iPhone did was put the web in your pocket. If you're somewhere between bent and hell-bent on accessing generative AI on your iPhone, you can do that on your iPhone. No built-in hallucinating chatbot required. Unless you ask Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives. Apple 3.0 ran part of a note from Mr. Ives on Wednesday that had him arguing that the time has come for Apple to do a big M&A deal, and its Perplexity. Quoting his note, covering Apple for many years, we understand the DNA well in Cupertino, and there is a belief they can develop anything internally better at Apple Park that an outside acquisition will give them. Unfortunately, we believe those days are gone, the time has come. Apple needs to acquire Perplexity to significantly boost its AI platform. While he's aware of Apple's apparent reticence when it comes to big acquisitions, he thinks paying about $30 billion with a B dollars would be a drop in the bucket relative to the monetization opportunity, because famously Apple has trouble making money. Is anything in AI actually making money, actually turning a profit at this point? I know it's attracting a lot of investment dollars, but is it actually making money? Maybe this takes us back to that John Maynard Keynes quote we discussed a few weeks back. Worldly wisdom teaches that it is better for reputation to fail conventionally than to succeed unconventionally. Ives says investors would loudly cheer a Perplexity deal, and it would get Cupertino off this AI treadmill on 2.0 speed. Because famously, Apple changes its business direction to please investors. Mr. Ives makes me sad. He also maintains an outperform rating on Apple's shares and a price target of $270. The looming retirement of Tim Cook's Tim Cook has many pondering Apple's executive ranks. I told you yesterday that Apple COO Jeff Williams was backing away from that position. He'll be around for most of the rest of this year, overseeing Apple's design team, Apple Watch, and the company's health initiatives. Longtime Apple employee Sabi Khan will take, or has taken, the COO title. When Williams leaves, Apple's design team will answer directly to CEO Cook. All of that sounds good to Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani. Apple 3.0 ran part of a note he wrote on Wednesday. Pulling quotes from that, Apple supply chain management remains an underappreciated part of the company's success, so we think the continuity with the internal hire is important for maintaining this advantage. Bears may point to a second C-suite departure, the first being former CFO Luca Maestri. Bears may point to a second departure as confirmation of challenges at Apple, but we think this is a long-planned transition, and quickly appointing an internal hire speaks to the depth of Apple's bench. Mr. Daryanani has an outperform rating on Apple's shares. His price target on the shares is $250. 9to5Mac brought up an interesting question in the wake of Apple's COO announcement. The Cupertino company says Williams will keep overseeing Apple's design team, Apple Watch, and Apple's health initiatives for the rest of 2025. When he leaves, according to Apple's announcement, Apple's design team will answer to Cook. So what about Apple Watch and the company's health initiatives? It's really only a question because of the explicit way Apple said what would happen to one of the three things with which Williams will pass his waning days. Question asked, 9to5Mac did come with possible answers. They had Bloomberg's Mark Gurman hitting the Heil site, pointing out that Apple Watch hardware has been under Senior VP of Hardware Engineering John Turnus for some time now. As for Apple's health initiatives, Gurman thinks those will land with Apple's Senior VP of Software Engineering, Craig Federighi. Shifts like this week's in Apple's ranks bring a persistent question back to the fore. Who will one day replace Tim Cook? A piece by Leander Caney over at Cult of Mac tackles that question. According to that, the aforementioned Turnus is the popular favorite. As Caney points out, he's already in charge of most of Apple's key hardware, including the iPhone, Apple's biggest cash cow. His main advantages are youth, he's not even 50 yet, and proven charisma. Federighi's a possibility. As Apple's top software executive, Caney says Federighi also has a high public profile and has helmed scores of Apple's splashy demos. Other candidates mentioned include Sabi Khan, Eddie Q, Greg Joswick, and Lisa Jackson. The thing is, Caney wrote his whole piece to pitch a dark horse. Apple's Senior VP of Retail plus People, Deirdre O'Brien. Factors working in her favor in Caney's estimation. She's been at Apple since 1988, starting with a job in operations, like Cook, and rising through the ranks to become VP of Worldwide Sales and Operations, a position formerly held by Cook. In the years before Apple co-founder Steve Jobs died, Caney says Jobs often turned to Cook to fill important jobs, something Cook does with O'Brien today. O'Brien took over HR in 2017. When former Apple head of retail Angela Ahrendts hit the exit in 2019, retail was handed to O'Brien. In hindsight, Caney says it looks like Jobs spent years grooming Cook for the CEO position by giving him multiple roles to familiarize himself with many aspects of the company. To Caney, looks like Cook's doing the same thing with O'Brien. About the only thing Caney sees working against O'Brien is her age. While we don't actually know how old she is, she's bound to be about 60. Caney says Apple's board might want somebody younger who is capable of staying in the role for 10 years or more. Now, personally, I think there is one other knock, though. It's not about O'Brien specifically. It's about anybody in Apple's ranks. Yes, we've seen Turnus and Federighi give good demo, and yes, Jaws and Jackson have been around. When he was CEO, Steve Jobs was almost never on the earnings call. Usually made the call about once a year, if memory serves. Cook was a fixture on Apple's earnings calls at least as far back as 2005. That's the furthest back I was able to easily find records of who was on each call. It was usually then CFO Peter Oppenheimer and eventual CEO Tim Cook and maybe some other execs on the call. Not only did he have to answer or parry questions off the cuff, Wall Street knew him. Analysts and investors had spent years getting to know him before he was named CEO. O'Brien hasn't done a lot that's public-facing. Again, though, almost nobody at Apple besides Cook has in ways that weren't scripted. All of that said, naming a woman would be radical. And I hate that that would be radical, but it would be. Caney says the move would be in line with Cook's activist CEO modus operandi, especially such a trusted and longtime lieutenant. It's been a minute since Cook looked anything like an activist CEO, but he's probably still got the outfit. Caney wraps his piece saying, O'Brien certainly isn't a lock as Cook's successor, but as a dark horse candidate, she's got a lot going for her. She should definitely be mentioned as one of the candidates for Apple's top job. Another call for a slightly revamped Apple Vision Pro this year. A little over a week ago, TF International analyst Ming-Chi Kuo said he was looking for a better spec'd Vision Pro as soon as this year. From what he's heard, that'll feature an M5 processor and no other changes. Expecting both more and less this week is Bloomberg's Mark Gurman. He's got Apple planning to introduce its first upgrade to its special spatial computer as early as this year. On the expecting more side, he says the minor revision will include a new strap to make it easier to wear the headset for long periods of time. On the expecting less side, Gurman's peeps say the Vision revision will be powered by an M4 processor. While that is much better than the headset's current M2, it's likely not as beefy as the M5 expected by Young MC. Shocking news from the Financial Times. Apple is reportedly bidding on the streaming rights for F1, the series of races, not to be confused with F1, the movie. According to the report, Apple is in talks to acquire the U.S. rights to screen Formula One as the tech group chases the success of its hit movie based on the race car series and delves further into showing live sport. The iPhone maker is challenging Disney's ESPN, Formula One's current American broadcaster, when the broadcast contract becomes available next year, according to two people familiar with the discussions. Hold on a second. Young media upstart versus old media stalwart? Somebody should make a movie. And finally today, folks who want one can have a first real look at the fourth season of The Morning Show. Apple TV Plus issued a press release Wednesday teasing the return of the flagship drama. Returning cast members include Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Billy Crudup, Mark Duplass, Nestor Carbonell, and a host of others. They'll be joined by new cast members Marion Cotillard, Jeremy Irons, Aaron Pierre, and a host of others. The streamer says Season 4 of the show About a Show opens in spring of 2024, almost 2 years after the events of Season 3, and that is where I'm going to leave it because spoilers, darling. If you're cool on spoilers, though, there is a Season 4 trailer up now on YouTube. Seasons 1 through 3 of The Morning Show are streaming now on Apple TV+. The first episode of Season 4 premieres on Wednesday, the 17th of September. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSKen at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
It's still sunny.